Hello and welcome to episode 27, and I hope it finds you well. I hope you're keeping safe. I hope that those around you and your loved ones are safe too, and I hope you're keeping sane in these tricky times. Something I wanted to talk about, and I'm using this episode to do so, is specifically about a test that I feel is vital and should be included in all fertility testing without fail, and that is vitamin D3, the sunshine vitamin, the vitamin that we're perhaps not getting exposed to at the moment, depending on where you live, whether you have access to a garden, how long you're spending indoors working. It's really, really important, and a lot of us are deficient in vitamin D anyway, without this going on, which I will discuss. I'm almost discussing the whole episode before I start, aren't I? So I'm going to talk about vitamin D, why I think it's a really important test, how you can get the test, and what it's for, really. So I hope you enjoy the episode. And if you've got any questions, as ever, drop me a line. And if you subscribe to the podcast, then you'll know when it's coming out. I know I've been a bit hit and miss recently, and homeschooling and other limitations has had a huge effect on my availability of a quiet space, shall we say, to do this. So if you subscribe, you'll know when it's coming out. And if you want to pop some comments, then please do. All right, enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Fertility Rewire podcast, a place for information and discussion around topics relevant to fertility. I'm your host, Kat Stevens, a fertility coach and founder of Fertility Rewire, which is a program designed to break through the overwhelm of information available and help you work specifically with the intrinsic design of fertility and help it adapt to today's modern world. You can find online resources at fertilityrewire.com and find me on Instagram and Facebook. I wanted to talk about vitamin D. Now, I'm not a nutritionist. Let me put that out there first and foremost. So the information I'm giving you is on information that has been available through research as well as recommended information moving forward. But also, I just wanted to discuss from my point of view with clients and testing at hospitals, doctors and clinics and so forth. So vitamin D is something that I suggest all of my clients get tested for. And actually, I'm just in the process of releasing a fact sheet about testing and what testing you should perhaps be looking for, and also tests that you can get on a home testing basis as well. So there are some real key nutrients that are important for fertility, as well as the standard hormone profile that's done by the doctors, and more hormone tests generally are what I would guide you towards, but that's perhaps for a different episode, the kind of to test or not to test. But vitamin D is absolutely something that I do suggest you get tested. It's something I get tested for myself twice a year. So I have multiple sclerosis, and I remember when I was going through the overwhelm of information available, and I kept coming across things about vitamin D being a risk factor and high vitamin D being encouraged. But I just looked at it quite pragmatically and just decided to look at if my vitamin D was low or not. And if it is, then I correct it. And I do take a supplement as a result of this test. So let's have a look what vitamin D is important for. So it is hugely important in fertility. There have been studies and research that have looked at how the level of vitamin D in the seminal plasma actually regulates sperm. There's also research that's looked at how it has a massive effect on sperm quality. Also, some research is suggesting that it reduces depression. As I've said, there are reports with regard to MS specifically, and that it can reduce the risk of MS, that it can reduce the risk of heart disease. And obviously there are caveats in that, because if you have a lifestyle that has huge risk factor of heart disease, then vitamin D alone is not going to reduce that. So we have to take this as a bigger picture as well. Really, really important in immune modulation. And this is huge. And as I said, there's lots of research about autoimmune, how a decrease in vitamin D might make you more susceptible to an autoimmune. There's also quite a bit of information on the internet about COVID-19 and vitamin D. Now, it is not a cure, and there is no cure for it at the moment, at the time of recording. Physical distancing and hygiene protocols are really, really important. But there is some suggestion that, checking your vitamin D levels at the moment is really important. And actually, the NHS in England, in the UK, have made a recommendation. It's on the website, and it's been mentioned in the news a little, but not as broadly as it should be. But it has made a recommendation that we should all be taking 10 micrograms of vitamin D daily at the moment, because we're indoors, because we're not getting outside. And this is important because vitamin D is known as the sunshine vitamin. So we get it from direct sunlight. And we get that kind of late March, April through to September. Has always been believed and thought that that would give us enough vitamin D for the rest of the year. But think of sunscreens. Think of the clothes that you're wearing. It's not full body exposure, is it? Well, not generally full body exposure. Also, if you're in a built up area, you're getting less light. If you're spending more time indoors, you're getting less light. So it's really, really vital test to have. And, I really do support it. Something else specifically when we look at fertility is that vitamin D, the level of vitamin D in you when pregnant, has been shown to affect the primordial follicles, so the very immature follicles that your female child, if you are pregnant with a female child, your level of vitamin D will affect her primordial follicles, which is what then becomes the follicles for ovulation later on. There are also some studies looking into how vitamin D affects AMH, which is the anti-Mullerian hormone, which is tested as a gauge for your hormone reserve, which, as we know, reduces as we get older. So also research looking into its effect on weight loss. So many issues. It's an absolute foundational vitamin that has so many effects. And of course, when you've historically looked into it, it's been about bone health and teeth health, and its strong correlation with calcium is important as well. So to summarise, because I went about the houses a bit there are so many benefits and functions of vitamin D. Some of them are very specific to fertility. Some of them very, very specific to our overall general health, immunity, bone health. Also, there are some lots of research looking into the link between vitamin D and autism and vitamin D and diabetes type 1. So hugely important. So what do you do? Well, what I suggest my clients do is you get your vitamin D tested. If you're in the UK, and I'll put this down in the notes, you can use a company I generally use is a company called Medichecks. That's medichecks.com, MEDI checks. And you can get a 20% discount on their vitamin D test if you use the code Fertility Rewire. Now, that's not commission based. That's absolutely all of that 20% goes to you. It can't be used in conjunction with other discounts, and there is a sale on at the moment anyway. I think it's about 10% off that. So that's really important. And then you see, when you get your result, that is when you'll know how much to supplement, and that can only be given by a medical professional or a nutritional therapist, but you will be guided in your results. And also you can speak to your GP about your result, and you will be recommended a dose, or you can speak to a nutritional therapist. We've had Joanna Plant on the podcast before, and you can look, you can contact her definitely, and she can give you a dose, a suggested dose as well, or any other nutritional therapist if you're working with them. So in terms of foods, salmons and sardines and oily fish, it's a fat-soluble vitamin, egg yolk as well, and also some foods are fortified with it. So margarine always was in the past, but most of us have moved away from margarine now. Some cereals are fortified as well. But when it comes to, and I'm not getting into the realms of nutritional advice here, but when it comes to what supplement you are taking, what I would say is that look that it is bioavailable and it is in a food state form. And the dose, as I said, you would need to get that from a medical professional based on your results. But remember, the NHS UK has said that at the moment we should all be taking 10 micrograms of vitamin D daily, and it's particularly important for children as well, so do bear that in mind. There are side effects of having too much, so please don't hear me say this and think that's me telling you to go out and take a big supplement of vitamin D. What I am suggesting is that you get a test to see what your level of vitamin D is, and then you can act accordingly on that. But I have worked with clients over the years, and actually when they address their vitamin D, that's when their fertility status changed massively. It's something that isn't routinely tested for. You can ask, and it's something that not all fertility clinics test for either, which does surprise me. But there are many fertility clinics who won't proceed with assisted procedures until the vitamin D is at the right level, and that's absolutely the right thing. But the question is, was that one of the factors affecting fertility anyway? So it's a simple, straightforward home fingerprint test, finger prick test even, not a fingerprint test, that you take and you post it off and you get the results. And as I said, I'm going to share the link that you can get the free test information. I've done the fact sheet for that for both men and women. So you can have a look at all of the things suggested, and you can get different combinations of tests with different companies. And as I said, I use Medichecks and other companies are available. And within that, then if you wanted to drop me a line, we can look at what tests might be suitable for you to have. I hope that makes sense. It's definitely food for thought. So make sure you're getting your 10 micrograms as the NHS suggestion, and also really consider getting a vitamin D test. If it's worthwhile considering other tests in the fact sheet, then we can look at combining, and that might save you a bit of money as well. Okay, so all this information will be in the notes. I hope you're well. I hope you're staying safe, and I will speak with you soon. Thanks so much for listening to this episode, and I really hope that you enjoyed it. And perhaps even it provoked some thoughts. And what I really want to convey through these podcasts is that through information and exploration, we can achieve transformation. And perhaps it's time to tame your fertility tigers. As ever, if you want any further information or you'd like to get in touch or give your feedback, then please do get in touch. You can find me at fertilityrewire.com and also at Fertility Rewire on Instagram and Facebook. And then online resources are also available at fertilityrewire.com.